Let me just say a few words about the book. We don't have much time, so half an hour to present and to talk about this book, it's quite a challenge. But what I want to do is really to share with you some of the topics and also views that are explaining my project, why I was writing this book. You were talking, when presenting me or introducing me, you were talking about my work within the Islamic field and Islamic sciences in ethics and the legal issues, and I have been working on that for years. And many people, they ended up thinking that I was only working in that field, forgetting that before that, my first studies were in philosophy, Western philosophy. My first PhD was on Nietzsche's philosophy. But not only on Nietzsche's philosophy, it was through the Nietzsche's eyes to look at the Western philosophy, because the title of the PhD and the thesis was Nietzsche as a historian of Western philosophy. The way he was looking at the whole tradition, and then I had to compare what he was saying with what they were saying, what Plato and Socrates were saying, and the way Nietzsche were sometimes distorting and sometimes getting to the point, understanding, having the intuition. So by doing this, I was very much involved in the Western philosophy before working within the Islamic philosophy with Islamic philosophers. And as you know, today you can get a PhD in philosophy in the West with no knowledge at all about Oriental philosophers or Islamic philosophers. It's as if philosophy is the West. And we speak about universal values, and sometimes we go as far as to say we speak about Western universal values, which is a contradiction in terms. So, and it's exactly the same in other civilization. If you go and you speak with some Muslim scholars, they think that everything which is coming from Islam is universal. So it's Islamic universal values. So you have universality everywhere within every single civilization, and not able for us to come to something which is a better, a deeper understanding of what we are talking about. So this book is really to use all what I have been doing during the last years and to come back to the very beginning and say, okay, a quest for meaning, which is a new take. And I can understand that some of the people who were dealing with my works as a so-called Muslim intellectual are quite surprised. Who is this guy coming from the Islamic teaching and coming to our field of philosophy, of Western philosophy, and talking about things that we are not used to read from a Muslim intellectual? And if you read some of the critics that came after the book, it was interesting that in The Independent and in The Guardian, I was just reading and say, they didn't get the substance of the book. I say, if you are an intellectual Muslim, when you speak about women, you speak about burqa and headscarf. If you are not doing this, it means that you are misleading your reader. Because it's as if as a Muslim you should be in a box and you should talk about this. Or about discrimination, because this is the way we are expecting a Muslim to speak. And this is what I was doing from the very beginning, to decenter myself and to come to the middle. Not to talk from my window, but to talk about the concepts. And as you were saying, about freedom, about universals, about the quest for meaning, about education, about masculine and feminine, about all these topics. So what I am saying in the introduction of the book, I don't want to look at the ocean through the window, but I want to look, or through my window, I want to be in the ocean looking at the windows. So this is a Copernican revolution. Change your mind, change your perspective. So once again, for example, I'm talking about tolerance and respect. And my take on this is really tolerance is not enough. We have to go beyond that. You can understand if you come to the very, I will explain this. For me, it's a very important take. It's just to go beyond just to tolerate people. Read from someone who is expecting me to remain an intellectual Muslim or a Muslim intellectual is, oh, what he means is that we should respect the Holocaust denier. I never said that. Implicitly is the Muslims have a problem with Holocaust. And then what he's saying is something which has nothing to do with the substance of the book. So what I'm asking you at the beginning is when you enter this field and are introduced to this book, is to forget about the label of the writer and to come to the substance of the journey. Because what I am doing in this book is really to ask my reader, come with me to a specific journey. And this specific journey is a meditation which is based on three main dimensions. The first one is rational and reasonable. Rational means that there are arguments and there is a logic. So sometimes you are dealing with a logical mind. But sometimes I'm dealing with spiritualities, because if you go to, and this is also something which is not known really often about my own experiences, I have been traveling a lot in India, dealing with Hindu traditions, going to sit with the Dalai Lama and to get from him knowledge, because I wanted to understand what he was talking about. And I understood from him how spirituality and Buddhism is not the kind of romanticism that we have now in the West. It's very demanding. The Dalai Lama, it's waking up every day at 4 o'clock revising the text. He's not just speaking about reincarnation as if it was something good. And by the way, if you know Buddhism, it's not good to come back. It's not. It's just a test. It's suffering. Liberation is about going out of the samsara. It's the coming back and this cycle. So this is something for me which was important, is to come within spiritualities and to understand that within the book, this initiation, because it's also a spiritual initiation, is really to come to something which has to do with the spiritual dimension. And sometimes it's also about poetry, because something which was very important for me is through my education in French literature, the main concern for me was poets and poetry. Baudelaire and Rimbaud were the poets that I was dealing with, and they were talking about suffering, they were talking about freedom, they were talking about all these deep meanings that are part of philosophy. Because literature, there is also something which is clear philosophy in fiction. So this is where I want to start the whole journey, to come, this is where we are. And now, forget your window. Forget for a while your window. You look at the world through a window, and humility is to know that you have a window. A window means there is a framework through which you look at the world. And try now to decenter yourself and go to the object, the concept. What is said by your tradition, your philosophy, your religion, your history, your culture, and other cultures, other civilizations on, for example, the quest for meaning, on, for example, universal, on freedom, on modernity, on tradition, is to decenter yourself. And what I'm saying from the very beginning of the book, there is no such a journey without accepting the risk to be shaken in your certainties, in your beliefs. No way. There is a risk. And to sit down here and to say, you know what, I'm open-minded, I'm ready to talk to everyone, it's very simple, it's very easy. But it's not true. To accept diversity takes effort. It's a personal journey. It starts with humility. And humility is to accept to leave your window and to go out, to learn from people. To be able to say, I don't get it all because it's my window. It's limited. So there is something else that I can take from someone else and some other traditions. So I can understand that with what is said today about Islam and Muslims, to get this from a Muslim is quite worrying, what is happening here. But still, this is what I would and I want to share with my readers, is just to be able to do that, to get out of your window and to try to understand some of the concepts, and from the concepts to go to all these windows and to understand what sometimes the traditional African spiritualities are saying, the Hindus are saying, the Buddhists are saying, what we are saying from the West, but also what is said by other religions, the Jewish tradition, the Christian tradition, and to get a sense of the density of the concepts, not only the complexity of our vision, the density of the concept itself and how it's shared sometimes. So this is the quest for meaning. And the quest is a quest, it's a journey. So just live. Ella Meyer, it's a woman who was traveling a lot, said once, you know what is the most difficult thing when you leave your country, when you start a journey, is to go to the station. It's not to take a flight, it's just to leave your home. The first steps are the more difficult one, because you are leaving your comfort zone and you go out and you have to take this effort. So this is why I think it's an important point for me. This is what I want to share. And I want to do this from within my own tradition, but also from my own culture, the Western culture, the European culture, and to build the whole thing through three main concepts. A sense of humility, as I said, you don't get it all. A sense of consistency. Never compare the values of the others with your values in a way which is unfair, which is exactly what we are used to do. Our values with your practices. So our values are great, it's all about freedom and democracy, and what you are doing is bad because you are not respecting the values. And you forget that ourselves, we are not always consistent with our own values. So compare the like with the like, not our values and your practices. And Hindus or Buddhists or Muslims or Jews sometimes are doing exactly the same. It's really consistency is nurturing your humility. And the other thing is, whatever is your answer, my first attitude, intellectual attitude, psychological attitude is respect. Respect means you are as complex as me. You have your answers, I have my answers. And if I don't agree with you, I give you the benefit of being legitimate in your answers. This is respect. So these are things that are upstream from all the dialogue. This is why I'm calling it's developing a philosophy of pluralism. A philosophy of pluralism is a real philosophy of life. It's change yourself if you want to change the world. It's educate yourself. Don't speak with your mind about, being respectful towards the people. And when comes the first, tragedy or social problems, you forget all your values and you reject the people. Because in our times, it's very easy to be racist and xenophobic when it comes to our social problems. So it's really something which has to do with personal education. It's a mirror through which we are educating ourselves. So all this is part of what I'm trying to do. And then I come with 14 chapters where I'm studying a concept or a notion from all the angles, from all the tradition that I know and that I have studied, trying to get with the density, as I said, of the notion. So you were mentioning some of them, and I think that the first one is, the title of the book is The Quest for Meaning. If you go to read someone who was a historian of religions, Mircea Eliade, he was saying, I went through all these civilizations and tribes and clans and everywhere in the world. And what I saw is that for him, what he called religions, or at least the fact that human beings are always trying to get an answer to one question, is why are we here? He's saying this is structuring the human conscience. It's part of us. You can be an atheist, an agnostic, or a religious mind or a spiritual mind. At the end of the day, there is always one answer that you are giving to your being here. And if you say, I don't have an answer, like the agnostics, it's an answer. It's an answer. I don't want to answer this question. I'm just trying to solve the problems of my life in a daily basis. But it's an answer. And you have people saying, no, it's not enough for me. Because it's okay with my life on a daily basis if I don't have a problem. not to ask the question of being or the quest for being when I am in love, that's fine. But one day it will come when I am suffering. Suffering is the first door to the deep question. And this is why, for example, Nietzsche is saying, tell me what you do with your suffering, I will tell you who you are. Which is a good point. Think about it. Some of us are saying, I'm suffering, it may be because I did something bad. I'm not good. And he was saying, no. I'm suffering, it means that I'm someone. So it's the way the artist, there is no art without suffering. This is what he was saying. And this is the concept, where the quest for meaning is for every one of us, something that we are sharing. And what is important is not to wait for us to share the same answers, but to understand that we are sharing the same experiences. You know what it is called this in basic psychology? Intellectual empathy. I can put myself in your shoes. I know what you are trying to do. I know that your answers are not going to be mine, but I know that you are looking for answers, and this is what we are sharing. To be able, when it comes to the quest for meaning, to understand that we are all in that quest, that we are all trying to get an answer. And that whatever is your response, to understand that this is your response to a fundamental question. So the ocean is the question. The answers are the windows. And then you get this sense of humility. But also with humility, a sense of humanity, that we are sharing this, and that we have to go for that. This is simple philosophy, but in our times, we need to come to simple philosophy. To come back, we have to reconcile ourselves with philosophy. And in the chapter on education, I'm advocating the fact that in our societies, be it industrialized societies like in Britain or in Europe or in the States, I'm just coming back from Africa, in African societies, we need to reconcile ourselves with teachings of 4 main disciplines. The first one is history. History is telling you about the fact that this quest for meaning is transversal, is crossing all the civilization, and it's there every time. If there is a religion after another religion, is that we are sharing the same question. If there is spirituality, if the Hindu are not exactly like the Buddhist, and the Buddhist came after the Hindu, it means that there is a step, that they're understanding that they are a chronological move, but still the questions are the same. And at the end of the day, you may think what you want about your status today, but you are not more advanced than Socrates. Same questions. So history in philosophy, it's important. History of thought, but also what happened through our human history in our civilization. The second, which is important, is to reconcile ourselves with philosophy. Why? Because philosophy is not only about why, but it's also about the meanings of things, it's the objectives. When you train a philosophical mind, what you are saying is not only why, how it is working, like sciences are responding to the question of how, but why, what are the objectives? Is to be able to come with ethics in sciences, ethics in politics, ethics in economy. Is philosophy is questioning the meaning and the objectives. So we have to come in our schools with something which has to do with philosophy, the questions. Why are you doing what you are doing? At the end of the day, why do you want to be successful in school, in universities? I have students in Oxford, and sometimes, this is what I have been telling my students, they say, why do you want to succeed? Why do you want to graduate? And how are you going to graduate? Are you just repeating what the professors are saying? Are you a parrot? Or are you a critical mind? Why education is something which is central. Philosophy, it's important. To study religions, and not through catechism, but just to know about what we live in pluralistic societies. And if you are Christian or Jew or Muslim or atheist or agnostic or Hindu or Buddhist, and you live in a pluralistic society, if you build your being on ignorance, this will be division. Because when you don't know who you are going to be scared of who you are not. And in a pluralistic society, it's very, very scary. It's very dangerous. So we have to reconcile ourselves in education with also history of religions. This is important. And when today in the West we are saying, you know what, you should know more about Islam, I'm sorry, I would say you should know more about Christianity and Judaism, and Socrates, and Aristotle. Basic knowledge of these very deep thoughts that are constructing our minds and our understanding. So this is something which is also quite important here. And there is a fourth field where we have to push our kids in our societies throughout the world, as I said, in Asia, Africa, or in the West, is arts, imagination and creation. Is when, for example, remember, once again, it's Nietzsche saying, you know why I don't want the time to be linear? Because when there is linearity, you are looking for a way, a sense. It's going somewhere. And he said, now the time should be cyclic. So it's a cyclical time. And he was saying, in fact, I'm playing with time as an artist, going from meaning to form. Because with form, you don't need a meaning. If the time is coming back, don't ask where you are heading, because you are coming back. So he was putting arts into philosophy, and I think that we need also to come with creativity, arts, and expression. In all our civilizations, it will help to get a sense of humility because we are creative minds as well. So this is where, when you go to education, the concept of education, and you ask yourself, through all these civilizations, what was set and put in the concept of this understanding, you will get a sense that there are principles that we are sharing. What about your memory? And this is something that we are all sharing now. In Britain, when after, social unrest, or what happened, terrorist attack, or what is happening in the world, in the time of globalization, what is the first question the people are asking? What is Britishness? Who am I? The question of identity. When you are losing the old milestones, you come back to a very narrow understanding. When the Pope was saying about Europe, it's Christian and Greek, he was wrong, but this was understandable. When you are scared of the pluralistic dimension of our societies, you come to reduce the roots of the past. So it has to do with memory, and then it has to do with philosophy and meaning, and it has to do with religion, and it has to do with arts. So I think that this is where we understand that we have to deal with this. And this is what I'm trying in the chapter on education, coming with this deep understanding of what was said, for example, by very important educationists throughout all the civilizations and all our common experience on that. So here is something which is, for me, important to be equipped in this journey and to come to, first, this quest for meaning that we have is something that we are sharing, and then about universal. And there is a competition, as I told you, there is a competition of universals today between civilizations. The West is, you have to abide by the universal human rights. It's a universal declaration of human rights. And you have some people in South America, or you have some people in Asia, and some people in the Muslim majority countries saying, it's not universal, it's coming from the West. So you have a discussion about this. And the point is for us to understand, what do we mean by universal? And I'm taking in the book the image of the mountain. Is that the universal is at the top, is the summit of the mountain. But we all have to agree to look at the mountain from the valley. There are many routes helping us to go there. So yes, at the top we'll find shared universal values. And the only way for these values to be universal is to be shared. If not, it's yours, it's not mine. The problem is that in history and in philosophy, some are getting to the summit the first and say, this is us. You got that from Rousseau. Rousseau, when he was talking about, the private property, he's saying, the first one who come with sticks and put them on the earth and said, this is to me, this is mine, was misleading the people. And he found foolish people to believe him that this is his. This was for all. The earth is for all. Universal values is exactly the same. You have some people, they are at the summit and say, this is ours. And they are having a dogmatic mind about universal values. And they don't get the fact that there are many routes going to the same summit. And you have to get that, which is important because it's a sense of humility. Don't look at the mountain from the top. You are not God. You may speak about God, you may believe in God, but you cannot look at the world through the God's side. If you do that, it's a dogmatic mind. And I'm studying in the book what is for me today the most dangerous minds that we are facing. It's not only coming from religious minds, and this is why I'm not, I disagree with Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins. All the people are saying, religions are the problem. I say no, the problems are human beings. It depends on the minds of human beings. You can be atheist, you can be agnostic, whatever. The point is the way you look at the world. And the most dangerous minds are the dogmatic mind. And the dogmatic mind are not exclusive minds that say, okay, I have the truth and that's it. No, they are binary minds. I have the truth, it means that you are wrong. So it's binary vision. But it's not because you are religious. You have very religious minds that are open. They accept that there are many routes going to the summit. But you have atheists and agnostics, they can share this dogmatic mind. Because I doubt, I'm open-minded. My doubt is a proof that my mind is open. But because you don't doubt, it means that you have a closed mind. Once again, if you look at it from outside, and you look at this, it's exactly the same mind using doubts as a dogmatic posture. It's I doubt, I'm open. You don't, you have a closed mind, you are not open-minded. And then you have people who are dogmatic with their doubts. Think about it. You will find lots of people. I doubt, I am open, you don't, you believe, you are not. And then you are not, we don't have a discussion here because it's as dogmatic as the people saying, I'm right, there is only one solution to me being right, is you being wrong. And this is a religious discourse that you can have as well. So this is where, in this quest for meaning, the universal and all this discussion on the universal is the starting point of an education, is to look at the world from the valley. Is to look at the mountain from the valley, to understand that there are many routes. And to accept the fact that the other routes are as legitimate as yours. Because you may think, oh, I will be the first there, so I'm legitimate. Or I may say, oh, there are different routes, there are only one which is right, mine. Which is exactly the dogmatic mind that we are talking about. But I think that here, this is where we need this kind of training from our understanding when it comes to the universal. And then other concepts that are so important. I was talking about tolerance and respect. And once again, tolerance in our usual discussion today, the average discussion among citizens that we have, it's a positive word. I don't have a problem with it. The problem that I have is that you have to come to the roots of the word. And to understand that the philosophers, for example, Locke or Voltaire, when they were talking about tolerance, they were talking to power. And they're telling them, you have, with your power, you, the church, or you, the state, to use your power in a way which is accepting the others. So Hobbes was thinking, no other religion. Locke was thinking, we can have other religions, but we have to ask the state to accommodate the other religions. So to accept them, to tolerate them with their power. That's fine. Now, if I come to you, and we are on the principle that we are equal citizens, and I tell you, you know what? I'm accepting you to be here. I tolerate you. It's not exactly the same. You may think of someone having power saying this, but at the end, no one in this room wants to be accepted. You want to be respected. So it's something which is a step beyond that. We have to go beyond tolerance, which is a condescendent attitude towards equal and mutual respect. And what I'm saying here is that in history, tolerance was the way to deal with power in order to let the people believe in what they were believing in mono-religious societies. And now we have to go beyond that. And then in our discussion today, it's really to go to the deep understanding of these words and concepts and not to be misled by apparently positive concepts, not understanding what it could mean for people when you say, I accept you, or a state of acceptance. Karen Armstrong once was saying, acceptance is not something that I like. I want, once again, more than that. And I think that this is a very important dimension of the discussion. One thing that I want to add before my conclusion is also to say something which is about freedom. Because very often here, the philosophical discussion on freedom is something which is important. And all the religions and all the spiritualities and all the philosophies are sharing something which is deep here, which is paradoxical, but you don't get it if you don't study this thoroughly, which is there is no freedom without limitations to freedom. Difficult to get, essential to understand. No way. Kant and Rousseau, when dealing with freedom, they were saying, no way. You need to limit in order to experience. There is no absolute freedom. And we know there is no absolute freedom even in the way we talk. In our societies, you cannot just go for racist statements. There are limitations. You can't do that. And we are now in a discussion about, absolute freedom, yes and no. You have to add to freedom the rights and the legal dimension, and then you have to add to this a psychological dimension to freedom. That sometimes it's legal to do it, but not sensitive to go for it. It depends on the atmosphere. But that's not the point. Rousseau is saying we need limitation. Robinson Crusoe, in his experience, is coming to an island, and he's free. You know the story. In fact, this story is not coming from the West. This story is coming from Ibn Tufayl. Ibn Tufayl came with Hayy ibn al-Yaqazan. It's a medieval story. It was the first philosophical story. And he was exactly describing this story. You arrive in an island. How are you going to deal with it? Ask yourself. You are alone in an island, so you are free. The first limitation to your freedom are the natural needs that you have. You need to eat, you need to drink, so these are limitations to your freedom, biological limitations. And then what? What are you going to do with all this if you are getting something to eat, getting something to drink? What are you going to do with this? And then you see Hayy ibn al-Yaqazan putting laws for himself to feel that he is free. So he's alone, but he needs limitations to know in which way he is experiencing his own freedom. Exactly like you get this in Robinson Crusoe, exactly the same experience. And for us, it's also to ask ourselves in which way we are dealing with freedom and in which way we need laws to experience it. So what is our relationship with law when we are trying to promote freedom as something which is essential for human beings? And this is once again something which is quite important. Let me end with something which is a highest level in all the spiritualities. If you listen to the Dalai Lama, they're saying, the first limitation to your freedom is what? Is suffering. That life, it's all about suffering. So because you are suffering, because you are experiencing this suffering, there will be no real freedom as long as you are in this coming back, this cycle. So you have to get out of it. Free yourself from your ego is the way to be free, which is exactly the opposite of what we get in industrialized consumerist society. It's do whatever your ego wants, you are free. They are saying exactly the opposite. Free yourself from your ego, this is freedom. And at the end, there is the paradoxical dimension of what is freedom. And come to arts now, and this is why you understand why art is so important. When you listen to someone playing piano, and you get a sense that he or she is playing in a way which is completely free, improvising without rules even. To get that level of freedom, that when you listen, when you see, say, oh, it seems to be so easy, that she or he is not respecting rules, it's coming like that. In fact, if you study how to get that level, you understand that these are hours of mastering the techniques and the laws. You master the techniques and then you get to improvisation. So your freedom with music, it's coming very deep and very committed knowledge of the rules. Know the deep rules, you get the highest level of improvisation and freedom. You know what is this in arts? It's the very essence of all the spiritual teachings everywhere. This is why you sit in front of the Dalai Lama and say, I wake up at 4 to free myself from my ego. And by being freed from my ego, I look at the world with a free mind. If you resist your sleeping, you get another way of being away. So these are things that we are also sharing in many traditions. And by the way, the Christian tradition is full of this. Mystics in Christianity and in Islam is full of that. So it's the way we look at the deep dimensions. So let me end with all this by saying these are notions: education, respect, tolerance. I'm also talking, I didn't talk about it right now, about masculine and feminine crossing the civilization. And once again, please don't expect from me as a Muslim only to speak about the headscarf and the burqa. And no, I think I'm trying to come to the deep understanding of what it is, or what it means, crossing the civilizations to be a woman, and what it means to be a man. Is it the same? Is it something that we are sharing? And you know that neurosciences now are coming with new answers. So this is some views and some hints on the book itself, what I was trying to do. And you can get a sense of something which is a bit different from all I have been trying to do over the last years. Thank you.
I'll ask a very simple question. I noticed in your book that the dedication is to a semicolon. Please explain.
Semicolon, yes. This is exactly the essence of the book, as to dedicate the book to the semicolon. Why? Because it's the most universal sign that you have in language, helping you to understand. It's very difficult to use, by the way. It's within a sentence, understanding that there are many propositions. And with the semicolon, with many propositions in the same sentence, you get a sense of complexity. So I'm dedicating the book to the semicolon in order to show in which way we have to deal with the complexity of thoughts and to help us to reconcile ourselves with complexity beyond simplistic answers. I think that the most dangerous thing today is to be as educated as we are and to come with so simple, simplistic questions that sometimes we are driven to support, and it's very dangerous. So humility in front of the semicolon is good.